I'm sure many of you are well aware, since it's basically been all over, but America is not in a good spot right now. It seems that 2020 continues spiraling out of control, and nobody seems to know why. With the murder of George Floyd, we have been reminded of two things. One, the stark incompetence of our leaders, and two, the lack of morality amongst the general population. Do not be fooled, this is not some newfound societal illness, but rather the dying cries of a long since deceased society. Western civilization died the moment it betrayed the hands that fed it. However, the far more important question to answer is what can MGTOW men do to continue thriving in a post-revolution society? Before we answer that, we must first examine what the lay of the land could be like once all the dust has settled. Now we already know that a vast majority of adults today were raised in broken homes, which would be translated in their virtue system. Children learn what is right and wrong from their parents, and we know that women are no strangers to demanding free shit, so we can deduce that the population of adults raised by single mothers will likely be highly entitled and want to build a society that gives a bunch of free shit to everyone. Sound familiar? That is because these people have been touting their support of communism for years, and should they succeed in accomplishing their revolution, then you can be damn sure that that will be their first order of business. If you thought identity politics and the welfare state were bad now, you're in for a very rude awakening if these people ever get hold of the mantle. I know many MGTOWs say that they will never marry, but it is interesting to entertain the thought of a dystopian future where the left forces men to live with single mothers, while not expecting anything in return, of course. After all, it is her body and her choice, but it isn't your choice if it's your wallet. Of course, this is highly unlikely, but if this does become the case, then my suggestion would be to either live off the grid in the wilderness or something, or just move to a different country. At least for me, I would rather live in the forest and risk getting eaten by a bear before I would ever even consider cohabitating with a woman ever again. Now the opposite could be true, and the establishment could succeed in quelling the public unrest. Whether they use force or not, you could expect them to put legislations in place to curtail your freedoms so as to reduce the chances of something like this happening again. Perhaps they reduce your ability to protest, or maybe they incorporate the same facial recognition software that China uses to keep track of their citizens' movements. It is a ubiquitous action taken by rulers threatened by their population. For some reason, they rarely ever look inwards and ask themselves if they failed as a leader. They instead choose to try to restrict the population even more, which only makes the people fight back even harder. If this turns out to be the way it plays out, then it is up to you whether you choose to conform to having limited freedoms or not. Personally, it depends on how far they take their barriers. If they don't interfere with my ability to build myself to be self-sufficient, then we'll have no problems. If this is rendered impossible because of a big brother constantly censoring or monitoring what I do, then I would definitely jump ship. I wouldn't even recommend trying to live in the wilderness because they will probably have some way to track you even if you are out there. Now I ought to be very careful with my wording here, because I don't want YouTube thinking I'm trying to incite violence or something. But let me say this. I am perfectly fine if a cause is obtained using violent means, if and only if that violence is directed towards entities that could bring about the change you want to manifest in the world, and you are completely incapable of finding compromise through other methods. To illustrate what I mean, let's take a peek into the history books for a bit. In the late 18th century, France was a poverty-stricken country since they gave so much resources to the Americans to help them succeed in their revolution. This resulted in large swaths of the population living in extremely impoverished conditions. One thing led to another, and the citizens decided that the existing monarchy led by King Louis XVI was inept and needed replacing. So what did they do? They didn't go and burn down their local bakery. They didn't loot their local blacksmith. They took the revolution straight to the king and overthrew his reign. I bring this up because it is an effective way to achieve what you want. You don't shoot at things around the target expecting a bullseye. And now I am aware that many of the rioters are not people who live in these communities and are coming from out of state to ruin these cities. But where they are from, quite frankly, doesn't change my position. No matter where they are from, they shouldn't be attacking random establishments if they truly want to see some sort of police reform. It completely ruins your message and makes it exponentially more difficult to see actual improvements. If you don't believe me, just look at the news headlines recently. They are more focused on the riots than they are about the message, because the message has been lost amidst the violence. I myself am not an accelerationist. I don't actively desire the collapse of the West, particularly because I don't want to have to live in a Wild West shithole for a few years while everything else is rebuilt. However, I think the accelerationists have been making massive strides in bringing their dream to fruition, so it is wise to be prepared for when a collapse does occur. Because do not be mistaken, a collapse is imminent. So you should do your best to stockpile supplies of food, water, and weapons for self-defense. Because if you can't defend yourself, don't be surprised when others take what you have worked so hard to gather. Thanks for watching this video. This one took a while, not because I was working on it for days, but because I've been visiting family in preparation for my upcoming move. Expect delays for the coming week or so, but rest assured I'm not quitting. Once I've gotten settled, the content will be consistent again. Just bear with me for now. But yeah, like and subscribe for more content like this, and as always, stay prosperous.